welcome to the good, the bad, the ugly. My name is Zach Nord, and I'm your host. This video cast series is really about all things related to DevOps. And then today, I'm really excited to have Ax Sharma, who is a security researcher. Ax, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Zach, for the introduction there.
Absolutely. So, Ax, can you share a little bit about your background?
Yes, I'm a security researcher at Sonatype. I also write articles on the side and just try to, educate people about security and learn new things myself. So it's been going great like that for the last 3 years. And yeah, we have discovered some real good stuff, both inside Sonatype and outside. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. I've been seeing your name around the news these days. I wanted to just become famous having you on here as well. So
you
no.
give me too much credit, but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, Ax, one of the blogs that you wrote about here recently was the dependency hijacking vulnerability, software supply chain attacks. Obviously, it impacted Microsoft, PayPal, like 33 other companies. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not a new thing. It's a novel kind of software supply chain attack because we haven't seen anything like this being exploited all these years. But many researchers already knew about it. What it is, it's called dependency confusion, namespace confusion, or dependency hijacking, or whatever you want to call it. The basic idea is if your projects, they're using say a dependency called foobar, which is a private internally created component which does not exist in any public repositories.
Mm-hmm.
If an attacker can squat or register a component by the same name in a public repository, and if your tools aren't configured properly, the attacker's public package will get pulled into your software build as opposed to your private one. And that is what happened in this attack, what Alex Berzin simulated, and he was able to breach over 35 big tech firms.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the one thing that was really interesting, I think I saw your update. It went from like, hey, we saw 150 copycats 48 hours later. Then you updated it the same day. It was up to like 275. I'm just curious
That was
the trends.
Yeah, that was like moving because I mean, we report on the news, right? Like I break the story, and then 2 days later, I see Sonatype's pipeline is full, like our automated malware detection system, right? Release integrity, we call it. It flags like 175 packages. Okay, we're researching it, adding it to our data. We immediately release a blog post to inform the community that, hey, watch out for these people are, for bug bounties or maybe malicious purposes. We don't know yet. So we want, and like the second the blog post goes live, 1 hour later, I'm seeing 275 plus packages. A week later, like 400 plus packages. More are coming as we speak. So we're trying to, add this to our data, but still, I mean, given how release integrity works, as far as I know, like the customers are protected because of Nexus Firewall.
Right.
I should do that again. Too much promotion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. So, so Ax, what other types of software supply chain attacks are you seeing?
So dependency hijacking attack has been making headlines for sure, but other than that, we've been seeing a lot of supply chain attacks in the open source ecosystem, and we typically see these in the form of like typosquating or brand checking attacks. So as we saw, like I mean, Ruby Gems case, right? Somebody squatted like this pretty color and Ruby Bitcoin. These two packages. There's a blog post on that one too, and we have analyzed this on our blog. But essentially, these components, they contain like legitimate code from popular components such as colorize package, and like deep down in one file there was malicious code buried which mined or rather I should say stole cryptocurrency. We also have seen other examples like electron, which is like a play on the spellings of electron package. So attackers are really like counting on a developer making like a typing mistake and getting the wrong package.
Yeah. So one thing that I've also heard of people being concerned about is malicious commits or somebody getting volunteering to to work on an open source project, getting the rights to do it to ultimately attack somebody. Is that something that you're looking into or seeing?
There's a lot of gray area in this, like what is even malicious, what isn't. And I'm not trying to dodge the question here, but oftentimes we have seen like, I mean, 1 or 2 times people came at me that you're reporting this on your news article blog post, this was a legitimate research package, but the person did not give any details. They're posting malware, okay? And unless I mean, so okay, you try your due diligence to make sure, is this part of an ethical research? is this an attacker? And there's always that gray area in open source that if a system is open to anyone, that includes good and bad actors. So how do you differentiate between the two? So we always, I mean, at Sonatype specifically, we do our due diligence. We try to see if this is an ethical hacking or what's going on. And that's actually how, like, we were aware of Alex Berzin's research since mid 2020, because we
Yeah.
saw this, we saw the guy's name, we saw the person had a credible profile, so we reached out and clarified what was going on. And we verified that there was a coordinated disclosure taking place. So
Okay. So you had actually identified it, reached out, talked to them, and
absolutely,
confirmed it.
we've been catching the packages all this time, but obviously the vendors, they had their own policies, right, when they feel comfortable disclosing it, which was February 2021. So we kept adding these packages to our data and making sure the customers were protected.
Got it. Got it. No, no, that's fascinating. So you mentioned it's up to over 400 now, right?
Yep, and it's going up.
Yeah, yeah. So how do without, I mean, obviously being trying to be vendor agnostic here, right? How do companies, depending on whatever tool they have now, maybe they can't yet, maybe they have to get tools, but how do they just protect against those types of software supply chain attacks?
So there's multiple ways to achieve this. The simplest way is any dependency that you're using internally, make sure to squat or register the same name on public repositories. That way, you beat the attacker. They cannot do this. Also, it helps to squat like misspellings of your packages. It's similar to like cyber squatting your domains, how
Ah, interesting.
if
Yeah.
you like sonatype.com, it also helps to, like .co.uk, stuff
Just
like
take all those domain names essentially, right? Yeah.
exactly.
Got
Uh,
it.
one
Yeah.
of the ways. Another way is to make sure your development tools are properly configured, that they're not pulling private internally created dependencies from like a public repository. And scoping or using namespaces helps in that case. That make sure, if like at your company, you can have that as an NPM namespace and, reserve it both on the NPM public repository and also within your development tools, you can specify that anything, any dependency created under at your company scope has to be pulled from like your internal repository, not npm.
Yeah. I mean, that just sounds like a massive undertaking, right? When you start thinking about making sure all the build tools aren't pointing out to the public repositories. Because I know just being in this space, right? I mean, the majority of um, code being pulled down from public repositories is going directly to build tools. Is that accurate?
Yes, I would say that isn't that this is why this dependency confusion or namespace confusion has been so concerning.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, so how do you and I know that you're more on the security researching side, but I mean, I guess just the question that comes to me is how do you migrate your development teams to begin to have those secure practices is a question that comes to my mind.
Look, there is going to be friction, obviously, like security and development, there always is that barrier you have to cross. But like I said, there are multiple solutions and it's not one person's responsibility per se. If you see Michael Prescott's blog post also on Sonatype blog, like he presents like multiple solutions to this. And then Brian created another blog post, Brian Fox, our CTO, on specifically how like such an attack would have been very difficult to conduct on Maven Central. And the reason is because an attacker couldn't just squat, say, org.apache.spark on Maven Central because of the domain name validations, the FQDN based validations. So the namespace, the name of the namespace itself is like a reverse, domain like org.apache.spark. So it'd be difficult to replicate this kind of attack. So that's if open source ecosystems like, NPM, PyPi, Ruby Gems, etc., they want to maybe adopt or mimic this model. I think that can be a great asset to everyone.
Yeah, no, no, that's interesting. It also is a potential, and maybe I'm wrong here, but to kind of use the firewall to block those public repos to hopefully filter people back to um, the repository manager.
So one of the things I want to mention here, and we were like so lucky in this because you're right, the firewall, like at Sonatype we have Nexus firewall, but also I think the bigger thing that got buried in all this is our automated malware detection system, release integrity, which was the thing that kept catching these packages right from mid 2020, starting with Berson's research and even the copycats we're seeing today. It's being automatically flagged by the automated malware detection system. And
Right.
the best part is obviously we can't analyze all 400 packages in one day, So while we are manually, verifying is this malicious or not, anybody using Nexus firewall, they're like automatically protected because anything that gets flagged as suspicious, it gets quarantined. So I
Yeah.
think like I don't like I like being vendor neutral myself, but this is something I've specifically seen only Sonatype do, and I
Yeah.
think it's just very important to have some kind of automation like this, catching suspicious packages.
No, and agree. And that's why I brought you on, is just because I find it fascinating, right? It just being cutting edge in regards to the software supply chain attacks that we're seeing. So ultimately, if you're funneling developers through the repository manager, the firewall capabilities, which analyzes components, you can block off of your suspicious um, things that you're flagging while your security researchers dive into them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, I mean, I guess Axe, what's the is there anything else, that any other types of attacks that keep you up at night in regards to open source? And I'll leave it at that for the conclusion. But is there anything else that you're seeing that is alarming as well in regards to supply chain attacks?
Yes, there always is, and a lot of that stems from like misconfiguration. I would say even dependency confusion attacks stem from some kind of misconfiguration. The Again, it's a bit old, but like the United Nations data breach that was reported on, right, which in which 100,000 staff records were leaked. That was just the one part of the story. The actually how it happened exposed Git credentials. Like on the public website, you could access their like /.git folders and .git dash credentials files. So imagine an attacker gets access to like United Nations Git credentials, they can inject their, upload their malicious code, commit it, and that's the seed or the initial, vector for a supply chain attack. So a lot of times we see these stemming from misconfiguration.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, Axe, man, this is awesome. I love the work that you're doing. Keep it up, and keep informing the community just in regards to these vulnerabilities. So when you guys are posting them, are they, I'm assuming once you determine that they're suspicious, they get pulled down by NPM, right? And I know you guys report those. Is that accurate?
Yes, we try to keep npm up to date, but obviously given the volume of these,
Sure.
it takes them a while to respond, which is reasonable. And but I mean, the takeaway is like get the advanced developer pack. I'm not saying like buy my product, but I have to, because like there's an alternative. These are being automatically, spotted by release integrity, which comes with the advanced developer pack.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Axel, hey, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Zach. Bye bye.